references of consciousness. Finitude is an end, it's finishing, it's losing, and a reference of consciousness, because consciousness in my concept is a reference point where you perceive yourself and you set that point as a reference, and then you have consciousness, and from that point you perceive the world. So finitude is a reference point of consciousness. When you start losing things, you will reference yourself in others that you have. And today's live stream is about this: how you can reference the things you own. In the things you lose, because the loss of the thing is also an object of your own consciousness, and you can reference yourself in the loss. So the finitude of things, the finitude of references, the finitude of life itself, the loss, the flow of life, it has a natural process of loss. It's life. In life you gain things and lose them. And today we're going to try to understand this in the most likely way possible, in the simplest way possible, but within science, with evidence, trying to share with you some resources to help you understand the idea of finitude. So you understand that finitude is a vital process. In finitude, things end, life ends. Finitude is a vital process. And sometimes with this invitation now, with this internet wave, the internet will do the following. It will lead you to possibilities. It's possible, it's possible, it's possible. And we have to be a little more aware of possibilities. Possibilities are what could be but aren't. Possibility can lead you to one possibility, another possibility, and you're a fanatic. Fanatical about political ideology, fanatical about religion, fanatical about economics, fanatical about something that's all possibility, 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 without anything concrete, without probability, without the concreteness of things. I'll explain it to you differently, and perhaps you'll understand and appreciate it. Your whole life is a curve that accumulates a lot of things. What you do, what you eat, where you've been, what you've photographed, it's a lot of things, and your life keeps moving forward in this mass of things you've done. So your life can be a curve integrating everything you've done, integrating everything you are, integrating everything you have, integrating everything you think, integrating all your brain formations. Life is this formation, this conglomeration of concrete, measurable things. That's life. It goes up and down, it goes up and down. Your hormones go up and down, your nutrition, your weight can go up and down. Your financial side also goes up and down. And in these moments of the curve that goes up and down, that adds up the integral of everything that you did. I can have a derivative. Here is an integral. That's all you are. I can have a derivative. The derivative is a tangent of the curve. It could be. It could be, but it isn't. It could go up more, but it didn't. It's going down. The possibilities are like derivatives. You have derivatives, or it could be, or it points the way, but it's not the way. It points at that moment, at that curve. If I do a derivative, I point the way. Where it really hit me was when the minister of the previous government, he arrived in government and there were all those COVID curves, and he said, guys, the curve, the trend is if nothing changes, it's going to go that way. But things change naturally. I can't just focus on the trends of these curves. I have to do concrete things to change that. The end result changes. Go back to your life. Your life has a lot of things. Since you were little, a baby, you've been growing, accumulating a lot of things going up and down. At this moment on these curves, the tangents of this curve, it could go in the bad direction, or well up or down, or to the left or to the right. These were possibilities, but they're not a concreteness of what happens. So what's important in life and what we're going to talk about today is something more concrete, something closer to a measurable reality. Ojeto, stop complicating things, keep talking to see if we can understand. And that's what I'm going to do now. Look, we're going to talk a lot about affinity. I have to talk the beginning of affinity. The beginning of finitude is the beginning of your DNA. Oh, DNA, yes, DNA. The egg where the sperm penetrated the egg with half the genetic codes went inside, mixed, and has your DNA, the genetic code. So your genetic code has now entered the egg and now it's an egg, okay? The egg, if I remove the nucleus from the egg, is a powerful totic cell. If I take my DNA today and remove its temporal memory and put it inside a cell, an egg without the nucleus, a powerful totic cell without the nucleus, a little Jackson will appear, a clone will appear. That's it, okay? So we're going to talk about finiteness and we're going to start with DNA. DNA is a chain and protein is a chain that simply guides, directs water and makes proteins. More proteins directing water from here to there. And DNA too. For me, DNA is an intelligence, a still fixed intelligence. It's a project. It's not the thing itself, but a project to make things happen. And your DNA and my DNA, which was there in a single cell, when does it start to duplicate? When it sees that there's food outside the cell and the ideal conditions for duplication. When it sees in the most Amerindian language, in the Korean language, outside of European colorism, the neurope. DNA perceives the neurope, and the neurope with food outside the cell, it activates cell duplication. It duplicates two cells, then four and eight, and so on. And the same DNA in this cell duplication, it keeps duplicating and duplicating, and there comes a moment when, even as the cell duplicates, it feels like DNA, it feels like all cells, all of them have DNA. Look, your DNA has increased, it has increased. By the time we reach adulthood, we have nearly 30 trillion DNA strands. One from one went to 30 trillion DNA strands. The DNA has made a very strong journey. But at this moment, as it duplicates cell by cell, it also receives molecules between cells. It communicates between cells. It keeps duplicating, and the cells communicate with the environment. Then came my idea, and it's a very interesting one, which is quorum sensing. These cells receive similar stimuli. At some point, when this number of cells reaches a certain number, a threshold, the cell begins to duplicate, differentiating. It was a cell, it was a tissue, this DNA, and now a tissue differentiation, going to different tissues, different organs, different systems, even. Look, we went from DNA duplicating and it with DNA belonging, cell DNA belonging. That's why I tell you that belonging is something we in our cognition seek to be aware of because belonging is a cellular thing. We need to feel belonging. If you're not well, if your peers have rejected you, if your family doesn't like you, if no one understands you, know that you need to feel belonging. And belonging is something you can also give yourself, and you'll access belonging by yourself, allowing yourself to be accepted, at least in your mind. Allow yourself to be accepted. Don't deny belonging because denying belonging is a denial of being. And when you deny belonging, any ideological group on the internet will capture you. Come here, be with us, belong. And then you think you found the meaning of your life. You found it because you denied belonging before. And the groups took advantage of you. They grab your attention, give you a little sense of belonging, and then kidnap you for the rest of your life. So be careful. Always strive for belonging. We're talking about finitude. We started with DNA. DNA began to duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Even as it duplicates, belonging makes it differentiate cells, creating new organs, and so it goes. They're going to skip a lot of steps because going beyond DNA and talking about finitude is quite complicated. So at 3 months in the womb, you already have some DNA structures, some tissue and organ structures. You already have a little brain almost It will mature at 30, but at 3 months, the little brain will be okay, it's fine, and it's probably already processing. It will be processing the data, the stimuli coming from the viscera and the stimuli from the movement of your little body. 3 months. So we're adopting or telling you that at 3 months you have a mind, finiteness, and references of consciousness. Hold on. Consciousness doesn't exist without a mind. Before 3 months, you won't have that consciousness. Before you have a mind, before your little brain processes what comes from your viscera and processes your bodily movement, your own perception and interoception, you have no mind. If you don't have a mind, it's impossible to have consciousness. Why? Consciousness is a reference to the belongings you have within your mind. For me, from the complicated words I use to you, consciousness is a movement that is perceived in the metabolism produced. In the movement of the brain that has consciousness, it is perceived. This movement is the movement of the mind of processing, interoception, and proprioception. These are two very powerful human senses, very important to us. Interoception controls all our feelings, they are interoceptive, and all our emotions are based on this proprioception, including our position in space. It's proprioceptive, so I close my eyes and I know my position in space. If I get a quick fright, my body jumps quickly, gives a little shock. Proprioception, and my feelings, interoception. They are visceral, they are slow. The bitterness of life, the goodness of life, the pleasant, the tense. You tense your stomach, you tense your viscera because feelings affect your viscera. They affect your interoception. And with interoception and proprioception, you have a mind. 3 months in the womb, you probably had a mind. With a mind, you can have consciousness, and then you perceive the world. You can be aware if you refer to yourself. This is important. And by the 3rd month, you already have notions, you have a greater sense of life, you have vision, hearing, and vision, which is already quite good hearing, but you also have nocioception. Nocioception is the body, it can feel some pain. Pain, it serves the body to act on the site of the pain. Nocioception, it's nocioception. So nocioception is a sense of pain, but when I have pain, it leaves nocioception and becomes something more bodily, a little different from this literal sense of cut tissue. A tissue is cut, there is pain, this pain repairs the tissue. But he calls it nocioception. It's the sense we have. Nocioception, when we feel pain, we can pay more attention, less attention, and place pain where there is no pain. So this pain is a more sense that we'll address today. Because in the finiteness of references, I can also lose the pain. This pain, it's not the pain of the cut, but rather the pain of this feeling a little greater, a little more entering higher realms, high cognition, let's say. So it's important for you to know that our perception is also the sense. Inside the womb for 3 months, you had your mind, and the mind allows you to reference yourself within it. And this referencing within it is our consciousness, finiteness, and references of consciousness. So we're getting to these references of consciousness. When you were little, really little, coming out of the womb, a baby, 1 month, 2 months, 3 years old. Let's think up to 3 years old. In each environment you were in, you heard some noises with words. You didn't know what a word was. It's no use. You don't know what a word is, but there were noises. Mummy, daddy, baby, how cute, I don't know what. These noises full of nuances, full of maternal tones. How cute. These noises. In different environments, these noises, which were words, they had meaning in this environment. That was kitchen, living room, bedroom, playroom. Always different noises, and this concept of the whole word was formed. That's interesting. The whole word also has to do with where it was placed in your head in volume. And what was this specific selective and interoceptive volume like? This is the mind. The mind, I'm here in a consciousness, and these words come, and I refer to myself here in my crib like a baby, and these noises come, and they enter my head with this global feeling of all the feelings and my memories of brain formation on top of this noise that's coming. It comes once, twice, three times. I learned the word, and suddenly I can even say it. And it becomes a tool for remembering where I was in the environment I was in. It's a memory. Of course, words then have grammatical structures, and we grow up with a fantastic technology to improve our lives with words. Okay. But the words were there. We're talking a lot about human affections with words, but there's also a moment when these words were used as a tool to perceive being. Here's a very important movement. When you perceive being with words, you're referencing the being within you. This is very important. So you are now having moments of consciousness referenced in a being. For example, in this set of words I'm thinking about, sometimes the baby is feeling 2, 3 years old, they feel something, they repress it because they put themselves in a position, for example, what I told you about, or rock or scissors or paper. Remember the brain connectomes? I put myself in a rock position and I've already referenced it here. Look, I'm scared. This is a reference. I can use words to anchor this reference, but it's a reference of being. So I'm not playing with the word, I'm being the word and the other words. At another time, I'm using the word identifying places. Why am I saying this? Because we speak our language all the time. I speak to you now. You are understanding, some not, but you will understand. These words are entering your head in a simple, simple way, but in the sleep phases, we have N1, N2, N3. In N1, during the sleep phase, you start to feel a little drowsy. And then what happens? In N1, the words you speak refer more to places. And they're very strange. In N1, when you're almost asleep, words appear out of place. It's not structured in a strong way. It's one word, I don't know, 2, 3 words without verbs. They don't connect. It's almost as if it were city, kitchen, living room, banana, big. It's not even big sometimes, just the words coming out as if they were the places where those words were spoken. It doesn't make sense. It even gives a feeling sometimes of anxiety at the beginning of N1, at the beginning of sleep. Because at that moment in sleep, we are connecting the volumes where these words were learned. Other symbols, the semantics of these words were placed, but not as sentences, because the grammatical unit is an entire sentence, an entire paragraph. Not here, we have individual words, the volumes. We're sleeping, okay? And we're in N1, so sometimes it bothers me, and then I ask, no, but I want to be rational. I'm a perfectionist. I want to improve this, so I just ask, or if I'm tense, I have to study, I have to know more about this, more about that, then I lose sleep again. Notice, here we are at the first point, finitude. Your rational part is nothing. Every night when you start to sleep, your rational part is having a moment of loss, and you have to let go of reason to sleep. Look how interesting this is. This is finitude. It's about letting go of your reason. The prefrontal here starts to deactivate. You go to sleep, you need to sleep. Rationality won't help you get through any sleep phase, so you have to let go of this reason and logic. It's the finiteness of this reason, this logic. Let it go. This isn't the time to take it to sleep. You can't enter the sacred environments of sleep with reason and logic, which is N1, N2, N3, and then the re-emphasis tonic. Okay, no, let things happen, because now is the time for your brain to rebuild itself. So this is important. And what is N2? Some words, when you were in those environments from a very young age, you referenced yourself in words. I am little son, I'm mine, something like that in these words. You take possession of these things and place yourself as the identity of the words. And in N2, you start to perceive yourself as words without any meaning. Then in N1, the first stage of sleep, you start to see single words and it gives you a little anxiety. They have nothing to do with each other, but they are single words without the perception of you being the words. In N2, you are the words. Nonsense. And then sometimes you fall into N2, you get scared and come back. And then you lose a sleep phase. Look how interesting. There are two important things there, N1 and N2. In N3, no, you enter. Oops, sorry. In N3, no longer. You enter, you sink into N3, and that's the end of the word, or the end of the word. Your brain will wash your brain. It will do a lot of things. Neurons, very important things in N3. The healing process is very powerful in N3. People with a lot of problems, sometimes with a deficiency in this sleep phase, which is N3, their problems worsen, their illnesses worsen. To perform our miracles, it's N3. But how come sometimes our miracle doesn't happen? Because sometimes we're stuck in a rut, in blind faith, in something very limiting beliefs, and we don't let N3 appear. We sequester our body, what I call zone 3. It's a sequestered body, and N3 can't enter. Finiteness, finiteness, that's what we talk about. Loss is fundamental. If you don't acknowledge loss, you can't sleep well, because sleep itself will involve a loss of reason. Sleep itself will involve a loss of self-reference. And when you lose your reference, your consciousness is fading. Understand? In N2, when your reference begins to interchange with words, consciousness has become lax. And consciousness is what makes sense of perception in your life. You perceive through consciousness. The mind does. You can be conscious and unconscious. You can be in some state of coma. But consciousness qualifies perception. This is fantastic. Every time you're in a very bad world, you can suddenly change your reference, your way of perceiving this being, and your perception of the world changes, okay? But if you're going through that phase of life, 80, 90 years old, my father died at 96, there's a phase in life when the body itself, the DNA that was duplicating itself, starts to stop duplicating. And the DNA that was controlling the water phases also starts to dehydrate, throwing water out of the cell. And it is the moment of human plenitude, finitude, the end of life. And sometimes some people begin to deny this moment and start to hydrate this person, this father, this mother, because they don't admit the loss. And by not admitting the loss, they prevent this individual from feeling the fullness of their own death. You leave and reap from this individual who would have the fullness of death, because death is a natural process. The DNA is releasing water, the body is dehydrating, and it will have its fullness. But some individuals afraid of loss impose hydration. Even within hospitals, they impose hydration, and this individual loses the fullness of loss. And that's today's live. It is finitude, finiteness, and things end. Sometimes we get very, and we value loss a lot. It's amazing. We have a loss bias. Every loss is much more painful for us, and it's worth more than the gain. It's natural for human beings. Loss is worth more than the gain. But sometimes when you don't lose what's in a glass, you can't add more water, even though the glass is already full of dirty water, and you can't add clean water. But when it's full of dirty water, you don't want to lose the dirty water. You don't want to lose what you know, what you have, what you understand. You don't want to lose your faith, your belief, your way of being. You don't want to lose. So the new doesn't enter you because you're afraid of loss. Yes, but while it's you, it's your life. Now, when someone else is losing and experiencing fulfillment in their own loss, then you go you to the hospital, you, the doctor, you, and then impose this body is dehydrating. Let's hydrate it. And this body won't have this fruition, this metacognition of its own loss. This is very complicated. Another loss we experience, but sleep gives us this. This is interesting. Sleep gives us this all the time. So the attention you had at the beginning is almost asleep. As you drift off to sleep, you lose attention. Man, attention is the most valued thing, the most valuable thing we have in life. It's attention. When your attention is being hijacked by social media, you're being sucked dry, your life is being sucked dry, you're leaking life because attention is your life. And sleep will also be hijacked from attention, but you let it go. Lose attention. And sometimes, and another thing, the memories, but also in the lives of people who are approaching palliative care, some memories are gone, some consciousness is gone, some emotions are gone, the notion of time is lost. So there is only a remnant of memory here, but when there is a remnant of memory and I still have a mind, even if not so capable, consciousness comes and I can polarize myself in this memory, and this is the moment of consciousness of this individual there in palliative care, or of this individual here when he is about to sleep and is sleeping and in the phases of sleep. So the process occurs, and so do the thoughts. The same thought you have, it loosens, it wears out, it disintegrates, it no longer has a stronger structure, it loosens. You lose what you think you are, you lose, and you let it go. And when you let go, you start to be the new in that same body, because you let go because you have the fullness of the stone itself, and you have tensional selves too, which is precisely where consciousness appears. Consciousness makes you lock in place and lock this restriction of movement and internal feeling. You put a feeling into having an attitude and restriction of movement in certain environments. This is what you have a tensional self for. When you're about to sleep, this tensional self for doing it will melt the visceral and bodily tension. It will let when you're at the end of your life, you have some tensions and some traumatic memories that are stuck. And sometimes it may be, I need to forgive my father or receive forgiveness from my father or my mother or my uncle or my son. And it just depends on you. Of course, it's good to talk to these people, but what depends is that these people let go of forgiveness is a very beautiful speech, but forgiveness loses its meaning if there is no judgment. And if you need to ask for forgiveness or forgive someone, how about if you stop judging that person? By stopping judging, you don't have to forgive, because when you stop judging, you relax your muscles, you release the tense self that judged. In truth, it is the inner tyrant within you that judged the world. Remember, I told you that the more of a tyrant he is, the more he divides what is right and what is wrong. Those who divide what is right and what is wrong, this is right and that is wrong, are tyrants. Things get mixed up, right and wrong get mixed up. Let's go with the law, let's go with the norms, let's try this, loosen up there, let's go around, let's live. Then the tyrant says, this is right, this is wrong, this is this family, this I don't know what. The tyrant always polarizes right and wrong. And there's right and wrong there. You judge and condemn yourself. And by judging and condemning later, when you're near death, this condemnation blocks your nerves, it's pulling muscles, and you can't let go. You need to forgive. But man, stop judging. If you stop judging, the tension goes away. Peace and fulfillment come. And when someone is in a moment of loss and needs you or needs your help, show them that in loss there is also fulfillment, there is also fruition. You live fulfillment where you have what you have where you are. There are people who stop being here and always live there, planning for tomorrow, planning whether they'll earn more, planning whether they'll buy a house, planning what's not there, planning possibilities, living what doesn't exist. You are here. Qualify yourself in the here, in the now, and in the fullness, and with the resources you have, with the problems you have, with the body you have. And if you're at the end of your life with the memories you're losing and you enjoy the fullness of it. And then there are people who feel sorry for these people, and they hinder this greater pleasure of the end of life, which is precisely finitude, the end of life itself, the dehydration of DNA. Only DNA will remain. Living cells will disappear, and it's the end, and it's over, and it's over well for that which doesn't bring pain until these final moments. Let it go, let it be, let it come. Folks, that's what I wanted to leave you with. Finitude is a process of life. We will go through it without a doubt. But we can go through it with great pain, or we can go through it with great anxiety. Choose peace, melt away, let go, let losing be part of your quality of life, and live better with your losses, your gains, your desires, and also your pain. A big hug, everyone. See you next Wednesday.